Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Lindsay, a member of the CK-12 team, and my colleague Katie and I will be running today's webinar, Everything CK-12, Updates for 2020. We are so glad that you've joined us today. Today's webinar is a little different from the webinars we typically run. For this session, we've compiled all of the changes that happened to our site this past year, and we're even previewing a few of the upcoming enhancements to our site. So if you are an existing certified educator joining us to see what's changed since you were certified, we welcome you. If you are someone who would like to know more about our program, we're going to stay on at the end of this webinar and answer any questions you might have about becoming a certified educator in 2020. Right now, though, I want to make sure everyone is comfortable with the two windows we have in Zoom. You should see one window that says Q&A, and that's where we would like you to type in any questions that you have for me or for Katie, or we've got Star answering some of the questions via text. Any questions you have for our team while the webinar is happening, put in the Q&A window and we'll be sure to get them answered. The chat window is really your territory where we'd like you to have a community conversation. So I see that's already started with people telling us where they're from. We had somebody from Argentina earlier. Mary's reporting that there's snow and cold in the state of Washington. Go ahead and introduce yourself in that window if you would like. Tell us where you're from, what your role is in education. And just make sure that when you're posting in that window that you change your options to show all panelists and attendees so that everybody can see what you're typing in that window. I also encourage you as the webinar is progressing to type in your own best practices with CK-12. If we show an update that you've already tried and that you're excited about, go ahead and talk about that and share with others. We love it. We love to see that kind of conversation unfold. I think that's all I have to kind of kick this off. Why don't I pass it over to Katie, who's going to run through the agenda for the session.
Thanks, Lindsay. So we're going to start with talking about some of our newest options that has to do with navigation and as well as content offerings. So we've done a lot of updates in the last year, and we want to make sure that you know what's available and how to get there. So that will be kind of the beginning as we work our way through. We'll then move into FlexBooks 2.0 specifically. The last time we did an update webinar, FlexBooks 2.0 was kind of being previewed at that time and started out that fall. But that was just the initial components, and we've made a lot of changes and upgrades to that and gotten it kind of fully up and running. So, and you know, it's still being updated every day. We're adding new stuff, but we want to give you kind of where it is today and maybe a sense of where it's going. And then the last piece we'll talk about is our customization and creating content. So one of the big advantages to our platform is that it's openly licensed under non-commercial use. And so we want to make sure that you guys can take full advantage of how to customize or create your own original content in our system, both for text as well as practice and some of the newer ways that you can use that with your students and classes.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm going to start us off by talking about the new navigation to get us going. And just one more reminder for you folks in the chat window, do check your post and make sure it went to all panelists and attendees so that everybody can see what you wrote. Okay, I'm going to be going over the new navigation, and if you are somebody who learns better by doing, you are welcome to press the escape key and kind of minimize this Zoom window while you have the web browser open. If you want to follow along, or if you want to see it before you do it, just sit back, relax, let me give a demo to you. This webinar is recorded, so you'll be able to access it later on if you would like. And just really be immersed in it and then maybe explore or try later on down the road. Okay, first thing that I want to show you is that if you've been on our site recently, which I'm sure you all have, you may have noticed that we have changed our homepage options. And the first one that I'm showcasing here is what a student would see, or a user who's not signed in, maybe coming for the first time, would see on our site, where it says the smarter way to learn everything up at the top. And you'll see that very prominently is a search bar. And we did this specifically for students because, as you all know, students love to search. They're very good at typing in key phrases and looking for information. So the search bar is there for students just front and center. Also, if you're a teacher who has assigned work through a CK-12 class, we also have a link there to enter in a class code right there under that search box. If you were to continue to scroll down the student homepage, the students would see science and math and social studies and even some photography books. We've started to surface some content from our users that we think is really high quality. And so students are immediately immersed in the subject area that they're needing to study. They also have options like adaptive practice, clicks, study guides, simulations. We give them quick access to those resources. If they know how they want to learn, then they can dive in and they can search by subject in some of those browse pages. So if you're signed in as a teacher, you have a slightly different view. When you press that start browsing button, it kicks you down a little bit on the page to explore what you want to teach today. And I'll show you that menu in just a second. And you'll notice that we have a slightly different option for teachers here. You can search by FlexBook, adaptive practice, simulations, clicks, study guides, and then that schools button. And that schools button is really interesting if you haven't ever explored that, to see if there's any nearby schools who've elected to publish their books on CK-12. You could check that out. One of my favorite changes that happened this past year is the addition of the Explore menu. Up at the top on the home page, you should be seeing this new Explore option. And I just find this is a really nice way to access things quickly. So if I know that I'm looking for our latest, greatest new FlexBooks, I'm going to click on FlexBooks 2.0 and start diving into some of that content. If I am looking for a simulation to use with my class, this is quick access to that simulations page. For any of you who are interested in some of our standards alignment, you might be interested in the CCSS math or the NGSS science, where we show you how our content correlates to some of those standards. We also have the link for webinars, or that link for certified educators. If you're not a certified educator, I would encourage you to click on that one and explore more about our program. And then there's also some really handy things that are under other resources. Some, just other users talking about how they're using CK-12 in their schools and districts under the testimonials. You can learn more about CK-12's mission and our team. And then the concept map is a fun one as well if you teach math or science and want to see how we are correlating those disciplines together on a map. Explore menu. I think this is a really handy change for quick exploration. On the teacher page, if you scroll down, you're going to see what are you looking for today. And some of the changes is really in how we've organized this content. You can see if you're looking for math that you can either search for math by level or math by subject. We also have our science branches, English, and then now we're surfacing some other things like social studies. We have some additional subjects under more. We do have college FlexBooks, which some people say, hey, you're CK-12, do you have anything in higher ed? And we do. We're really excited about these college books that you can explore. And then we have books specifically for the countries of India and Brazil. And then we have books that have been translated into other languages, such as Spanish and Korean and Deutsch and Chinese, Greek, and Polski. So if any of that registers with you.
Jump in for 1 second.
Yeah,
Those title translations, the primary ones, the Spanish ones we did as a project. Those are really cool. Those are older, so you might have seen them. The newer translations are primarily centered around translations for our simulations. So definitely check those out, because I think some of them link directly to that Sims page. So you will get a different option depending on what you're clicking on and where you're ending up.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, it is good. When you click on your subject, you are going to be thrown into an environment that we think is probably what you're looking for. So you might end up on a bookshelf looking at the books we have for that subject, or like Katie said, you might end up into the simulations world that we've been working with some translators all around the world on that project, which is exciting. But this is one way to access content in the subjects menu, or you can also always use the search bar up at the top as well. Which, speaking of search, we have updated our search to hopefully get you to what you're looking for quicker and more efficiently. If you type a phrase into the search bar there, you have the option in those drop down options to immediately pick which subject you're looking for. So sometimes a term that you're searching for might overlap with many math and science subjects. So you could really drill down and target your search for a specific level and subject. You can also see in this example down at the bottom where it says, moon, that you can search for moon in earth science, or it's showing you down below all of the other options that were showing moon showing up in that search. Our filter options are largely the same. So if you search for a concept, you can still filter by grades and subjects and even by categories. But something that you might not have noticed, which is a fun new addition, is that we're now telling you which book these reads are found in. So this is in a FlexBook 2.0. This is in our CK-12 Earth Science for Middle School book. You can see that down here that this is in the CK-12 Earth Science Concepts for High School. So that's a fun addition that makes, again, search more efficiently than perhaps previously.
Hey, Linz?
Yeah.
Before you advance for 1 second, we just had a question that came in about finding courses submitted by teachers. And that community contributed part right in the middle there is the answer to that piece. So if you do a search and then you click over to community contributed, you can find content by other users that they have chosen to create and publish. So it's only content that they've chosen to republish on our system, but all of that's available. And then you can use the same filters that Lindsay was pointing out to kind of filter that down to maybe FlexBooks or even the newer 2.0 FlexBooks.
That's a great question. This is a thing that even our most veteran users sometimes forget that we offer, is that this tab right here with my mouse is on CK-12 content. But if I wanted to search moon for any FlexBook, anything that any of our users have ever uploaded, I just flip this tab over to community contributed, and I would be able to see what the users have submitted. So that's a good reminder to be checking that out. We also now let you search within the FlexBook 2.0 world. So if you're using FlexBooks 2.0 and you go up to that search bar, you can see that search looks a little different here in this world. So we search Pythagorean theorem, and I get kind of visuals here, and it tells me easily that this is a study guide, the top one. We have a video that we've labeled a lecture. We've got a read and another read, which are more extensions of the FlexBook 2.0 lessons. So searching within a FlexBook 2.0, a lot of those will continue to open up in that window. Like if I were to select the applications using the Pythagorean theorem, that lesson would open up right here, and I don't ever leave the 2.0 environment. If I were to select a study guide or maybe a Sims or a Plex, it might jump me to a new tab and show me those related modalities in that new tab. So all of this is to say is that if it's been a while since you've used our search options, just know that it's improved. That's more targeted than ever. We're trying to give visual cues and kind of keep you in the environment that you're using. So I really encourage you to try our different filtering options and start with something that you're teaching next week, next month, or for you educators who are working with teachers. Search some of the bigger units that your teachers are having trouble with, and see if there's some additional resources that they can add to their toolkit. Katie, anything else that we wanted to tell them about search before I talk about self-study for students?
No, I think that answered the question. It did come up again, kind of the published versus not published. Our license allows you to recreate within our system to customize content, create content as long as it still fits under our license. And that's whether or not you choose to publish it, you still need to be under that license. But anything that you want to then maybe share out with others when you're ready, you can publish. And then at that point, it will be available via search.
Perfect. Keep any of your questions coming into the Q&A window. A big push for CK-12 this year in 2020 is really getting in the hands of more students. And of course, I'm guessing that most people on this webinar are probably educators, but I really encourage you to talk to your students about the power of CK-12 for self-study, because students could be using us across all of the subject areas, and it could be helping them learn. So if you're a science teacher and maybe your math colleague is not using CK-12 as their main resource, students can still come into our platform and they can be immersed and they can learn interactively. And we're going to help track their progress, and we're going to personalize the experience for them. So this dashboard just gives you a little bit of a glimpse of what it would look like to be a student and to be using a FlexBook 2.0. It shows them basically a FlexBook 2 as a course. So up at the top here, we've got a few different books listed, and you can see that I'm 1/16 of the way through this book. As students are reading the lessons and answering questions for adaptive practice, that's when this number is going to change as far as I've attempted some practice for that lesson. So this 1 out of 5 here for this world history book, that means that I've done one of the practices, or at least started one of the practices associated with a read in that book. So I can kind of come along and I can see how I'm progressing and maybe where I want to spend my time as a student learning myself. And then the second part down here is that we have concepts. And so you can also just view how you're progressing with any individual concept at any time. And I just wanted to show you that because I know as teachers, you don't always get to glimpse what students are seeing on their dashboards. Another thing that's really, really exciting is that we are launching a chatbot across our content. And right now it's only available on 30 science concepts, but we're looking to expand this really soon. I'm not sure, you're welcome to say in the chat window if you've encountered the chatbot or if any of your students have. But the chatbot is basically a very, very intelligent guy or gal here. Jeannie is the name of the chatbot. And Jeannie is here to just help students learn better. And so you can ask the Genie a question, and the Genie will try to answer the question to the best of its ability. Or you can also use one of the suggested actions. So here it's suggesting watch a video, take a quiz, try an interactive. We are a nonprofit, but we are in Silicon Valley. And so we are the latest, we're all up to date on the latest, greatest machine learning and AI, and this little chatbot is going to get smarter than you guys could believe. So as more and more students are asking questions of this chatbot, it's getting more and more intelligent, and we look forward to expanding this option across many of our concepts. Like I said, right now just 30 science concepts, but I bet you'll be seeing it popping up more soon. Okay, so I think, Katie, let's stop and check in with the Q&A and see if there's some questions that our users have.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions that have come up. One asked about other content such as social emotional learning or gifted education. We don't have those distinguished as separate branches in our system. You may find content. I know that there are scatterings of GED content or international baccalaureate content or AP content kind of in our system under that community contributed tab that we mentioned. To get there, if you're trying to figure out how to get to that search, you can use any of the search bars on our system. With the exception of the one specifically like inside the Plex search, which searches just inside Plex. But our regular search bar will kick you over to that page if you choose all of CK-12. And then you might find something. So you could search social emotional and see what comes up there. or work with, friends or colleagues to build that if that's something that we don't currently have, but that you're interested in. I know there's a lot of cool programs that do it, open educational resources groups that have worked on social emotional stuff. So you can see what's out there and go from there. We also have a question about viewing CK-12 dashboard as a student. You can view the homepage as a student. Your dashboard doesn't let you swap over because your teacher dashboard has your classes and your assignments in different pieces. We do have some teachers that have created kind of like, fake, not really fake, but like a separate email address that they have as a designated student. So it might be, a random first and last name that's not associated with their school, and they've added that to their class so they could see it as a student. So that's one way to kind of get around that piece and have another student within your class. But you can't see it in the regards from your piece except for the homepage. So if you had a separate account, that would work, or you could just ask a student to pull up their dashboard and kind of talk them through what they're seeing and how they're working with. That's a great skill for metacognition for students to understand where they are and where they are struggling and what they could do from there.
Sure. I'll jump in for the next one, Katie. Gina, thanks. We know you're a power user for us. Saying she's been using CK-12 for 5 years and loves it, and wondering if we had plans to develop AP textbooks. The short answer is probably that like our team of CK-12 employees is not actively working on an AP FlexBook, but we are working with partner districts who are looking to create that content and surface it on our site. So the question just disappeared from me, but I believe Gina was asking about environmental sciences, and this is the magic to the CK-12 platform, is that we are this empty vessel, as I'm sure Gina knows, that you can set up a FlexBook 2.0 on any subject, and you can pull in any content that's license compliant and bring it on our site. And for a subject like environmental sciences, we have so many different activities and reads and interactives that you could pull into that book to make it interactive and engaging for your students, that we could really get you a solid start on that book. But if you specifically are looking to maybe work on that content and you could use our help with that, don't hesitate to send an email to support@ck12.org, and we could have a conversation with you about those AP books. But we really are looking for partner districts across the globe to start working on content with us. Katie, did you see David's question? I don't know. Do we have an example of Genie that you want to pull up right now, or should we?
I can pull it up for a second. We'll kick over for 2 seconds and let you see what that looks like. So this is Genie. This is an example. It's, as Lindsay said, on a handful of science concepts. So this is one particular one. And we're just testing out the beginning of it. So we could, ask a question like, what is homeostasis? And I could type that in as is. And then it would answer, or I could have clicked on one of these things, or maybe it says, I want to learn more. So I could watch a video, and it will pull up a video related to this particular topic. So it's working kind of within this piece. It'll pull answers from this text to help a student out if they're struggling for figuring out what is up. And then we can kind of upvote or downvote those pieces. I could close that, start over again. It has kind of the history of what I have been typing in there. But as we said, this is just the beginning of this assistant. And so you'll see some suggestions, or you could ask it some questions. And we are trying it out on a bit, and we'll expand it from there.
Okay. Why don't I steal the screen back from you? And then I think, Katie, I'm going to let you talk about some of what we're calling the new offerings.
Sounds great. So our first set of new offerings that I'm super excited about are our math FlexBooks, in particular ones that we've designed kind of with the Common Core philosophy in mind. Whether or not you decide to use them in a state that is aligned to the Common Core or not, the idea of exploratory learning, I think, is extremely important in mathematics. So the most recent one we released was Middle School Math 6. 7 came earlier this year, 8 as well, and we've been adding to them. We also have on there kind of different teaching guides, different pieces. If you pick any of the math by level, that 6th grade math, 7th grade math, 8th grade math will get you to these books. They have interactivity directly in the text. They have questions within the text that students can kind of answer as learning experiences. There's teaching guides to help you out with that. So definitely check those out. There's also the newest Math FlexBook 2.0 that was released, was our pre-calculus one. That's also available. It wasn't necessarily redesigned in the same way. These books were kind of written from scratch with that in mind, but we did try to add some more interactivity into that book as well. So you'll see the pre-calculus one there, just with new content and interactivity. So that's our new math books. We also, as Lindsay mentioned, have some other kind of surfaced content under that. What are you trying to teach or learn, or what are you looking for today? This has a variety of content, whether that's user-created content that we've surfaced to help you understand that there's more than just math and science in our system. You could access that. Some of our history you can see there. You know, a couple of them are created by us. Some of them, if you do our FlexBooks regular search, there's a little community contributed designation that helps you distinguish between content we have created and content users have created within there. Or you could always look at kind of the description on a book if you open it up to tell you if, let's say, El Paso Independent created that book versus CK-12. But so hopefully that's helpful to give you a sense that there's more than just math and science there. And so we wanted to make that apparent even from the highest level. So those are available, whether that's directly from that level or using that community contributed tab to get the full set of books within our system, making sure that you kind of make sure that it fits your requirements for your class, your standards, and all that you're looking for. The other cool thing, Lindsay mentioned that there was books specifically for India. Those are older. The newest one that we have set up is for Brazil. These are super cool because they're not only just based on that area, but they're also written in Portuguese. So they took our elementary science content, which we had actually started with from a user who had taken our middle school science content, developed it down, we developed it, and now they've translated it. So it's a really cool kind of open process and customization process to get there. But in addition to the books that they've created, there are currently 4 grades worth of matching practice that's also in Portuguese. So if for some reason that is a helpful language for you, then that is a project that a team from Brazil has been working on, and we wanted to make that available to other users. So check that out. So I think we had paused here if we had more Q&A, but it looks like we are good to go. So maybe Lindsay will continue.
We will keep going. I think the next subject we were going to tackle here is FlexBooks 2.0, the new toolbar and options.
Great. So as I said, our FlexBooks 2.0 platform came out over a year ago at this point in time, but we've relocated some stuff, added some cool new pieces. Our toolbar is now up in the top right. So if you access content kind of from a page right away, you'll see maybe these other ways to learn. So it's one way to access them there. Or the second option is to access them on the top right. And then if you're in a particular lesson, you can see that piece. That might include anything. So there, as you get into the lesson, you can see that same content on the lesson plan, study guide, video, real-world application, and Plix. All of the core learning options are available for teacher and student accounts. The lesson plan, which I believe is currently in one of the middle school math books, and I know that they're working on it for other ones, is only available for teacher accounts. So that has more information in terms of suggestions for teaching, answer keys. But if you ever wanted to create references to share with teachers that would only show up for teacher accounts, that would be a place that you could put those in there. And then they would still be tied to the lesson even as you customize and rearrange the order of pieces. But great quick references there. They're also recently assignable. So the videos and real-world applications that were attached in there now have a little want to assign button that you can click over and assign them separately if you want to. Our notes and highlights when we moved up to the side toolbar have also moved. I find this super useful because instead of having notes at the bottom of a lesson, they are now available kind of in a split screen right next to that. So I can scan through the text as well as through my notes and kind of line them up and say, okay, what's that first one? There's properties of triangles. Oh, let's find where that matches in the text and figure out what my note meant and how that works. Those are per account, so each student can take their own notes and have their own highlights as they work their way through any particular section. The next one is our resources there. You will find we actually just made resources available at the book level for 2.0. When we released our science books, that wasn't available yet, so you'll actually find in the resources the answer keys for our core content in the first section of each chapter. So if you're looking for our science answer keys, that's a great place to check out. And you could do the same thing. You could upload a lab, you could upload an answer key for yourself or for students to, problems that you're working through. Just make sure that anything you're uploading there still fits within our license. So if you have a lab experiment kind of from that you bought or purchased or licensed, make sure that that's not being uploaded into the system. As you work your way down that toolbar, I'm going to skip assign to class because that's a bigger topic for a second, but there's two options that have to do with share. One is share, and that shares out of CK-12. So you can email a cool lesson to a colleague or friend or a parent that's looking for something. You can share it on Google Classroom, and that would just make an announcement. It wouldn't have any assignments or feedback or anything, but just do that. Or you can share it on social media. So that's the share option. The share to class is sharing to a CK-12 class. So if you are using CK-12 classes instead of a learning management system like Google Classroom, Canvas, or Schoology that are integrated, then you could post this as a resource within that class, and that would be one way to do that as well. As you work your way down, you get details and settings. The first thing is our concept details. This is super useful. You'll see different things from a description, learning objectives for that particular lesson, maybe some difficulty level if we have an advanced version of a book versus a regular version of a book. Any author or attribution information that you might need at the book level is available there. And then the primary concept is super important because that's what ties it all together to all of those other resources in our system. And that's what allows you to customize and do practice in different pieces. So if you have any questions on that, concept details are there. You'll also see the image attributions right below that specifically. We tried to pull them out of the lesson so that they're attached to the lesson for easy access and checking, making sure that you have all that information, but they're not taking up space and distracting students as they work their way through. And then the last option is display settings. And this allows you to change the font size, the contrast and color of font, so different background, whether you have white text or black text and a black background, and even the spacing of the lines for students that might benefit from a little more space or a larger text size. So that's your details and settings. There's also an option if you have customized a FlexBook. So if you're working on your own books or you work to customize, you put time and effort into that platform, and you need a copy of that book for your students for legal reasons, for IEP reasons, whatever that is, you do have the option to download that individual section directly from that toolbar menu, or what's on the left there, that choose option is our menu at the full table of contents level of a FlexBook, and you could download the whole book as a PDF. And that would be helpful if you were trying to kind of access a number of different sections or chapters in one section. We do just ask you to tell us who you're using it with to give us a sense of if this is being used for an individual or for whole classes. That helps us determine if it looks like a lot of people are downloading PDFs and they really need those for different reasons, then we want to make sure that we continue to support that in that way. So just let us know how you're using that. As I just mentioned, that's under that choose menu at the book level details. So you can see different pieces there. When you get to a book in FlexBooks 2.0, you'll see the overview that gives you kind of your chapter headers, and you can expand any of them to give you your section levels. You'll see details. Those are basically the same details that you see at the read level, just for the book, the description, authors, different pieces like that. And then you'll see right next to that the related FlexBooks option, and that kicks you into our FlexBooks browse, the whole FlexBooks browse across our older books, our newer books. You can filter by language, by subject, by grade. You'll see that whether it's a 2.0 book or an older book, and a community contributed option. So you may find that useful if you say, this is great, but I want a little bit more for my advanced kid for a particular topic. Does someone have an advanced book that we've published maybe on that topic? Or is there another book related that I could reference and pull some other material from? So go ahead and check that out. And then, as I mentioned, this choose option here, you're going to see different things depending on what you are looking at. So on the left-hand side there, the choose options that say assign, add to library, customize, add to FlexBook, share to class, that's if you're accessing a new book that you haven't accessed before. If you see the thing right next to that where it says already in the library there, And then edit, it means I've already started customizing that. Maybe I added it to my library and it would give me that already in library piece. I've started customizing it, and so now I have the option to edit it. It's a really clear indication. If you are looking at a book that you own and you have started customizing, you will see the edit option. If you go back to the original source, you will see the choice to customize again. And because I've started editing this, I now have that download PDF option at the bottom there. So that's something to keep in mind. Students, I'm going to have, let's go back one sec. Students, on the other hand, have start and resume. So as Lindsay was saying with our self-study for students, they can see their progress in any of our FlexBook 2.0 books. So they could add something to the library or to a FlexBook if they were working on a project, just to make it easily accessible. But in general, they just want to start a new book or they want to pick up where they left off, and those are the resume options. And their table of contents, when they expand, shows them their percentage on the work that they've done for any lesson. So that's just kind of a sense, gives them a sense of where they are and what they've completed as they work through. One other cool thing that students will start seeing, these are system generated. They're only available for students right now, but you could always have a student show you what they've done, if anything, so far, is that we've started adding in unit challenges. These are either at the end of a chapter or maybe splitting a chapter up if the chapter is pretty long. And they're available in our science content right now, and I believe our Algebra 2 content so far. Algebra 1 is coming out shortly. And they're just one other way for a student to self-assess and see how they're doing. Are they understanding the content? Maybe they need to go back and check out what they're reading. Once they take that challenge, they have the option to improve their score on the challenge by going back and looking at flashcards with either paragraph text or hints or things like that. But so once again, with this focus on helping students learn, we want to give them a chance to periodically figure out what they're understanding and what else they might need to go back and double check. So if they say, hey, I'm not really sure what this is, this came up, now you know that it is not a fluke. It is available for them to help them study.
We are flying through this, Katie. I know it's a lot of information, and like I said, you will have access to this recording if it would help you to go back and hear any of these again, but hopefully you're just getting some quick ideas of how to up your CK-12 game. Our Q&A is empty at the moment. Katie, any last thoughts you want to add before I start talking about assignments, reports, and insights?
No, I think we're good here. Please feel free to keep the questions coming. We can go back and switch back if we missed something that you have questions on later.
Okay, so I think a lot of you who are on this webinar are experienced with our FlexBooks 2.0. And so a lot of what I'm going to show you is probably maybe not new, maybe you just haven't seen the full enhancements yet, but our FlexBooks keep getting smarter and smarter. Up at the top of any FlexBook lesson, if you're signed in as a teacher, you're going to see this assign button, and you're also going to see over on the right side of the screen assign to class. This is different from what Katie showed you earlier on sharing. If you press the share, that's just sharing the URL, but when you press assign to class, you're going to be prompted to pick either a CK-12 class that you've set up on our platform or a Google Classroom. Now, there's also this little question mark that says, I don't see my LMS. We integrate with Canvas and with Schoology as well. So if you are a Canvas or a Schoology user, you're going to be making assignments from within Canvas and Schoology. You don't have to leave that environment to make your assignments. If you're using a CK-12 class or Google Classroom, you're going to be prompted to do that from our screen on our platform, okay? Once you would choose either a CK-12 class or Google Classroom, you're going to enter into that environment, and you're going to have the option to select which classes you would like to assign to. You're able to type in your instructions, and then you're able to set a start date and a due date. And then you have the option to either show answers or to not show answers until after the due date has expired if you would like as well. So this is pretty slick to be able to just make an assignment. If you are if you're looking at your FlexBook and going through different lessons and you want to assign, press it from that assign option at the top or the assign option in the toolbar. Now, if you want to assign multiple sections at one time, you're able to do that from the main book option. So here, if you're pressing choose from the book option and you go down and you click assign, you're once again going to get your options of assigning to the CK-12 class or the Google Classroom. And it looks a little bit different. You're going to pick the class, of course, and then you're going to pick a unit. And then you can basically, you can bulk assign here. You can select several concepts that you want to assign and select the due dates. And then again, whether or not you want to show answers. So if you're trying to do a week at a time, or some of you, if you can plan as far out as, you know, a month or a quarter and not have to worry about snow days and stuff, more power to you. You can bulk assign all of these assignments and get them into that CK-12 class or that Google Classroom.
Linz, can I pause you for 2 seconds? We
Yeah.
had a question that came in about turning in assignments. Maybe students not seeing a turn in button or it's not being submitted correctly. One of the biggest questions that we get is, oh, I'm using Canvas, but I also made a CK-12 class. So something that you want to keep in mind is that if you're using one of our integrated learning management systems, you want to stay in that environment. So you want to choose to always assign to CK-12 classes or always Google Classroom or always within Canvas and Schoology, have students access from within that piece and have them turn it in from within that piece. Because if, for example, they happen to open CK-12 on their own, they're logged in on their own in a separate account, and then they try to turn in a assignment that's been assigned in Canvas, the system is going to have trouble reading where to send that report, whether or not that's been assigned to them, because it's trying to figure out where that student belongs and what work they actually have assigned. So you'd want to make sure that whatever system you are using for classes and assignments, that you do so and you stick with that one, and hopefully that will avoid some of the kind of issues that you might see there. If you do ever run into problems with that, please feel free to reach out to support and we can answer any of those pieces.
Okay. Our class level reports are something that's just getting improved. I feel like every release cycle, something's changed with our reports. It's exciting. So we have this heat map, and you have the option to turn that on or off by checking this little box here. But the heat map's designed so that at a glance, you can see in green who is progressing well with a practice or a quiz, or who has opened up the resource that you've assigned, like this real world application, or who's interacted with the simulation with these check marks. So you can, at a glance, at a very high level, see where the gaps are. Like I might need to check in with Sean, who isn't progressing very well, or, you know, Natalie didn't do so well on her quiz. I might need to check in with some of these students. So the heat map is there for you at just at a glance, you know, temperature check of how your students are doing. But you can also drill down on any of these. So if I want to see what Matthew did on his practice for checking solutions to got 100%, but over here, when I select this cell, I get more information. So I can see that Matthew, he got his 10 correct. He had his best streak was getting 5 correct in a row, and he spent 17 minutes on this. And the total questions that Matthew answered were 13 questions. 2 were easy, 4 were medium, 4 out of 7 were hard. So I can tell that the questions that he missed were in this hard category. And if I were to continue to scroll down this sidebar, I would be able to see exactly which questions Matthew missed and how he'd answered. This skill level you're starting to see across different pages, this is fairly new. We have an explanation for what these different skill levels are. So you're welcome to press this little info icon if you want more information about what it means according to CK-12 to be proficient. You can do that. But just know that you can do the at a glance, or you can select these cells and see how a student is doing. Okay, you can also see student scores for multiple attempts. So here I'm on Maya, I'm looking at her quiz, And I had it set that you could have multiple attempts. Of course, you guys who set up quizzes on our system, you might just have it be a traditional quiz where there's only one attempt. But I get similar information down here about how many she got correct and the streak. But you as the teacher can control a few things here. You can even dismiss an attempt if you need to for a student before the due date. Sometimes we've had teachers talk about this before, that the bell rang at an inconvenient time and the student didn't get to fully submit that quiz, or they submitted and they weren't quite finished. You as a teacher can go in and you can dismiss an attempt if you need to.
Hey, Linz. Whoa, sorry, I'm going to have you go back for 2 seconds. One other note that came up as a reminder just for all of you guys. For example, it looks like Sean N in here hasn't turned in a single assignment. If a student's never been able to turn in an assignment, you may want to check their settings in CK-12 and make sure that they're set up as a student and not a teacher, because that is often a case that triggers the lack of a turn-in button if they are not doing something there. So just one more thing to note.
Absolutely. So reports are great, and you can see this in CK-12 or in Google Classroom or in Canvas. But insights are available to anyone who's assigned work through our FlexBook 2.0. And this is the area that I think you're going to continue to see a lot of enhancements this next year in 2020, because our team's really working on making our system smarter. So I have assigned this lesson on metals to Katie and to Ryan. And Katie, of course, is the golden child who got mastery. Really, Katie, you had to be the one to get mastery?
I think it just depends. I think I'm actually both Katie and Ryan. So I got both mastery and not the other one.
Katie, in the examples, Katie always wants to be the one who's the mastery student. And then Ryan, Ryan's in the yellow. Notice that these are color coded. And so I can again tell at a glance that Katie's in the green and then Ryan is in the yellow, which means that he is still a developing student working on this. But okay, we're selecting on Katie for the moment here. So Katie spends 1 minute and 16 seconds on this page. And I can tell where Katie spent most of her time by viewing this histogram off to the side. Okay. And so she read this and then she went through and she started doing the adaptive practice and she received a mastery score on her adaptive practice. Again, I can go to the reports page and really drill down and see how she did on that adaptive practice, but I can at a glance kind of have an understanding about how she interacted with this book, how much time she really spent looking at the actual lesson. So Ryan is still exploring and he missed some things. And you're going to notice if you're looking at this insights view from the side menu, you're going to notice a kind of blinking teal dot. And this is going to show you some areas that's Ryan, he would benefit from reviewing this section, that some question that Ryan answered or several questions are found in this area. And so he should review this section. And this is all, again, this is all done with the machine learning magic on the back end of our site, trying to make our books so engaging for students and so smart that if you are the teacher walking through a classroom of 30 students, your students who are trying to get ahead, our system is appropriately challenging them with adaptive practice. It's going to adapt to keep them advancing. Or for your students who need more remediation, we're going to give them things like this teal dot and show them where they can go to get that information they need to have success on those questions. Paragraph mapping. That's the other thing I want to talk about. Paragraph mapping. So as like I just said, you're gonna see these dots, and if you're a student and you're answering questions here, Katie, I cannot talk.
It's okay. Why don't I explain a little bit more on that?
Tell them about this paragraph mapping. I'm getting stuck on the teal dot here.
So as a student, that teal dot shows up for the kids. And what it does is this particular question, for example, when I was signed in as Ryan here, I got this question wrong. It said the majority of metals are something, meaning they're capable of being stretched into a thin wire. I typed in some random answer. I wasn't sure what it was. So the system says, hey, you might want to go check out this paragraph, because if you kind of catch 4 bullet points down, it starts saying the majority of metals or something. And that is a good place for me to go check. And so what this does as a teacher, a student sees this themselves. These are available on new pieces, and they're available across our science content. So you'll see kind of different parts there and different sections. And then it gives you a sense of both what they might need to review. If a bunch of kids are getting the same flashing dot on the same paragraph, maybe that's a good next follow-up lesson in class. But you can even see the questions that they missed, and they'll see that same piece.
Thank you, Katie. That was eloquent. I'm so glad that I can phone a friend and have you jump in when I'm all tongue-tied. So I appreciate that very much. And that brings us to just kind of another quick minute to check in on the Q&A. I know Star's been typing in answers to folks who've had some questions, but we'll wait just a few seconds here and see if there's any questions based on what we were just showing you with those insights.
We did have one question that came in about time frame. I asked for a bit of a clarification, but these new releases happen for newer pieces. So for example, if you assign something this fall, earlier in the fall, you might see the time on lesson and the practice skill level. The histogram and the paragraph mapping for teachers is a newer release. So anything that was assigned and completed after that release date would include that information. We weren't capturing it in a way that we could demonstrate it after that or before that. So just know that if you go back and look at, something that a student looked at in September, they're not going to have that histogram because it wasn't available at that time. So just keep that in mind.
Okay, and then David was just kind of speaking for the masses here, I'm sure, about the option of putting in more hands-on activities for students, and that's something that our science team is looking at. Looking at adding more activities. But that's also the nice thing about, we give you a couple places that you can do that on the site. If you have an activity that you've been using in class that you want to attach to the resources of the book, you're able to do that there. Or we do have an activity modality that you might check out. You might see what other users have submitted in that area. Yeah, we continue to build out more and more resources, specifically as they relate to NGSS.
A couple other notes, you might find some useful pieces in the teacher guides for some of our older books. I know those have some example experiments and activities as well. And I know our science team is looking into options from there. I got some clarification on that kind of how long time frame piece. When students are accessing that stuff, you have to assign it to see it. So, and then I don't believe there's kind of a stop date on that piece. It may stop giving you the information once the due date has passed, but it's not, if you don't set a due date for 6 months, it's not going to stop that component. It does, when it's like in terms of the time or anything like that, it is when the student opens it, the histogram helps you figure out what's up. I did try to cheat the system and play a video in the background and leave it on there for 10 minutes, and it totally caught me on that one. So it didn't count that extra time when I wasn't on that screen. So just something to keep in mind.
Okay, why don't you guys keep the questions coming in, and we're gonna switch over to sort of the last big subject we're tackling, which is the customization, creating and customizing FlexBooks, practice, quizzes, and inline questions, because we've made some big improvements to this process as well.
Okay, I think I'm up. So customizing and adding to FlexBooks. The customize option is in that same choose menu if you want to customize an entire FlexBook. This is a great example that I see in a lot of schools where they teach, let's say, an integrated chemistry and physics class. And so what you could do for that is you could open our chemistry book, you could click customize, you could retitle that as something that has to do with chem and physics. And then you could save that, close out of it. We always recommend kind of sticking to a single tab that you're working on so that you're not trying to save in one tab and save something else in the other tab, and the system doesn't know which one you're trying to save. But customize, save that one, then go open the physics book, and instead of customizing the physics book, I can click add to FlexBook textbook, and that integrated chem and physics book that I miraculously made while I was talking in the last 10 seconds is available, or I could create a new FlexBook. And then when I do that, I can add that whole book to the other one. And what it does is it will pull all of the chapters and all the sections from the physics book into the old book, as well as the book level attribution. So that's a new piece that it's automatically pulling that book level attribution for you. It doesn't, however, pull all the descriptions from physics and chem. So just make sure that you click over to those details. If you need to edit any of those pieces, kind of at that book level, you can see there the integrating chem and physics, edit resources and details. So you may want to update that description, but that attribution should pull from both of those. And then you can choose, let's say you don't need all of those chapters. You can then choose to remove and delete those pieces. In the top right, I put up there the Jumpstart demo account. That's my account. If you're in the 2.0 world, you can click on that to see your library and your dashboard and your classes. And that might just be useful because anything that you're editing and customizing is available up there. And that's the easiest way to access that content and add any other pieces there. One of the cool new things that you can also do at the lesson level or the section level in a textbook is all of that related content we talked about earlier in the other ways to learn and the related content in the toolbar. You can curate. So for the books that we made, we pulled example real world applications or study guides or interactives, videos, maybe another lesson that you want to kind of contribute and have there. And we put what we thought would be most relevant. If you are making your own book, you can click on that little red X to remove any content that you don't want included anymore. You can click add modality to add a new modality right up there and pull from any of our content from that concept or by searching. And you could even create, from your library, a brand new, what we call modality, which is just a way to learn, and upload your own text or another resource or a video that you want your kids to have access to there. Whether you're embedding it in the content or adding it as related content, that is how you can now curate. You will see that at the lesson level, not at the book level. So just kind of keep that in mind as you go through. As I just said, you could also embed content directly. So that little play embed button allows you to put any embed code. We have in the last year or so redesigned our embeds for simulations and PLIX. So now they have this nice little pretty launch window. You'll even see some embedded directly within the text that stays within that text and goes from there. So you'll see that across our content, but we have added that piece and you just need the embed code to do that. So one of the big questions we get is, where do I find that? So for simulations, in the top right, you'll see that embed option. It pops up a window, and that window right there has the embed code. I can copy that and paste that in the embed code option. Under that, it's a little movie strip with a play button in the toolbar there. For PLIX, I want to talk about that's a little bit different. So PLIX, same deal. Top, you'll see embed at the bottom there, and that menu under the little expand. And there's two different things that you can embed for PLIX. So if I embed the complete PLIX, which is the second choice, it launches just like the sim does in a new window with all the components of our PLIX interactives that we've had for years. Or I could choose to just embed the PLIX basic, and that just embeds the little interactive window with a description of how to interact with it. And this is what we've done for a lot of our middle school math books. You'll see a PLIX embedded and then questions underneath it that are different from the questions with the PLIX itself. And that's one way that you can kind of customize your use for students as you go through. So that's something to keep in mind, that those are now available for you. One of the other really cool things I love about 2.0 is the ability to customize any attached practice from there. So you can just open in the bottom corner where it says, as a teacher, it would be like view practice. As a student, it would be start. But when I open that up as a teacher and I click on that preview, I could see what it looks like. Or if I clicked on the right arrow there, I could download that as a worksheet for students if they needed access to a text at home and they didn't have internet access. Or I could customize that right there, and that would kick me into a quiz. So those options are now directly available from that practice within a 2.0 lesson. So something to keep in mind. So let's say I customized it. There's two ways to customize that practice. One is to swap the practice out for a different concept. So let's say I took a math concept, I changed a bunch of the text, and I ended up really writing a lesson that wasn't tied to the original concept. So maybe I want to swap it. So this lesson is on projectile motion. You can see the current concept listed as projectile motion for an object launched horizontally. Maybe I combined it to also include vertically, and I needed to swap that to vertically. I can click change concept and pull a different CK-12 concept and the matching practice that goes with that. So that's an option there. The other option is to choose the button below that, which says switch to quiz. So if I switch that to a quiz, that would then open up all of my quizzes in my library that are most recently edited. And I could pick any one of them, or I could click create a new quiz and make a new quiz on this concept or other concepts and kind of create some practice that I've specifically chosen. That works a little differently than the practice. I choose exactly which questions go in there and all of those other pieces. So the functionality is the same, but now instead of the lesson and the attached practice, I now have lesson and an attached quiz. There's one other new way to use quizzes, and that is as inline questions. And you'll see this in our middle school math books. And so if you made a quiz, you open it from your library, you could choose to assign it directly. You could choose to swap that practice out for that quiz and assign the lesson to the practice, or you could choose to pull the embed code and use it as inline questions. And just keep in mind that little info piece there where it says, these questions are not being graded, they're not being assigned to students, they're really just a chance for students to try out different questions. So I would recommend checking out our middle school math books if you want to see those in action. I think the next piece right here, if we advance slightly, includes a picture of what that looks like. So if I pulled that embed code and I embedded it in a lesson, it would look like this middle school math one right here. So here you can see the little window with embedded clicks, questions underneath it. We encourage you, if you're writing them, to write your own feedback, because they're going to get it to try that question again until they are successful. So it's really helpful if they get feedback as they go through there.
Katie, I think we just made it just kind of at the hour mark here. That was a lot to digest, and we really appreciate all of you who were on today to learn about this. Just a couple of quick wrap-up pieces, and then we'll answer any questions that anybody has at the end of this webinar. We do always ask for feedback, so if you have just a couple minutes and you could give us a little bit of feedback on how today's webinar went, or maybe even what features you're most excited about that were previewed today, you can go to the tinyurl.com/CK12feedback1920. And we appreciate you taking just a minute to do that. We also, we're in talks right now trying to figure out what the Certified Educator program looks like for 2020. We're making a few changes to the existing program and kind of pulling it out of the summer and making it something that you can enter into at any time. So we will be posting webinars soon. Right now, this is the only one that we have posted on the webinars page, and we hope that in a couple of weeks, we'll have more webinars up there for you guys to attend. If you have any questions about your status in the Certified Educator program, or you want kind of a preview of what we're thinking for this program, you can email us at jumpstart@ck12.org, and we'd be happy to talk to you about your options for finishing certification or for getting recertified. Also, jumpstart@ck12.org is a good place to email us with any questions that were not sufficiently answered during this webinar. We could give you some individual attention there. And then we also really encourage you to give us a shout out on Twitter or Facebook, LinkedIn, share with your network, let them know that you attended today's webinar, tell them about some exciting updates. We really appreciate that. So for any of you who need to sign off, you're welcome to sign off, but otherwise I'm going to pass it back over to Katie, and we're going to continue to answer any questions that are posted in the Q&A. Katie, what are you seeing in the Q&A? Okay, I can't hear Katie, so let me go into this. We've got, I really love all the new features for integrating two, oh, that question just disappeared. Hillary has a question about assignments. And Hillary, to be honest, I'm not really sure of the answer to this question about, her question is, did you say that the assignments had to be assigned and completed after the new releases in order to see the insights, or just completed by the student after the release date? That is a question that I'm going to kindly ask that you email support@ck12.org and ask them. That's a pretty specific tech thing that I'm not sure what the answer is to that. When will this webinar be available for others to view? David, thanks for that question. It should be up by tomorrow morning. Probably by check by midday tomorrow. Within 24 hours, we'll have this uploaded to that webinars page. Yes, check the ck12.org/webinars, and that's where this one will be. Are there more resources for making our own FlexBooks by combining 2 or more CK-12 resources? Absolutely. So on ck12.org/webinars, we do have webinars that are specific to FlexBooks. There's one called Getting Started with FlexBooks and one that's called Advanced FlexBook Editing. And those are more step-by-step how-to videos that could help you with that. Oh, good question, Mary. Okay, I bet we haven't updated that feedback page. Go ahead and press any, go ahead and check any bubble on the feedback page, and we will know by the date stamp that you're talking about this webinar. Sorry, we probably didn't update that. This is a new session. Thanks for filling it out to find out about that. We appreciate it. Okay, gonna give anybody is there any last questions here? Okay, I think we're gonna go ahead and call it. So we really appreciate all of you attending today, and we will see you on future webinars. Thanks so much.